welcome back to What Did You Learn? I am very excited to have today Aaron Watkins, Senior Director of Internet Strategy from Johns Hopkins Medicine. Aaron and I go back 15 years. We have been in the trenches together. So I'm really excited to have him here today. Aaron, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I can't believe we're finally here together
I
on
know.
the podcast. This is exciting.
It is very exciting. It's really exciting. I've been wanting to interview you for, a decade and a half. So this is like, my dream come true.
You've done it off the record quite a few times, so this will be interesting. Yeah.
Totally. So let's just start with, you're in, one of the best academic medical centers in the world. And you are just, everything comes in and you have to deal with it. What hobbies did you take up while you were working that hard?
Right. Interesting. I think my biggest hobby is taking a walk. I mean, I've never enjoyed walking more than I have during this pandemic. It's like the end of the day, I just want to get out and do that. The other really fun period was when the streets were kind of empty, which of course was disturbing. But at the same time, like I could go out on a bicycle with my daughter and it felt like the 80s in a way. Like we were just all over town and you're seeing all these other people bicycling. And that was a really cool kind of experience too that I never thought I would get to have with her. So I baked a little more banana bread because I was buying more bananas, and you know how that goes. Some weeks you use them, some weeks you don't. My daughter loves it. Yeah. That's the main thing that I've done a little more of. But in a lot of ways, I cooked less overall.
Really? How have you eaten?
A lot of to go. I mean, I've tried, even early on, there were a few weeks where I was nervous about taking food from restaurants. But, on the whole, I've been in that throughout. I've
supported your local businesses. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, it's tough times. Some are doing really well and some have closed.
What do you wish you had known?
I don't know. I mean, I think like a lot of people, I wish I knew how long this would last. I mean, I will say early on, I felt more out of step with many just people and colleagues and maybe underestimated that stress. I kind of hoped, or I planned for the worst, hope for the best a lot of times. And I felt when they were saying, 2 weeks and kids are back in school, I was just like, oh my gosh, she's not going back this year. And so my mindset's been a little bit more about the duration, and that's been good. At the same time, trying to help other team members, how long do they plan for and things. I wish I was better equipped to do that and be supportive in that way. I mean, beyond that, some of the things it's like, well, now it's what aspects of our tool set were we really well prepared to go into this and what things weren't we? And that's probably been the most fascinating part of the process, really, from a work perspective.
So when the pandemic started, a lot of focus was on Hopkins because of the dashboards and the public health aspect of it. Did you feel an increased sense of pressure because there was all of that light focused on it?
No, I'll tell you, so my senior content person came to me in January and said, I think we need to write an article on coronavirus. And so we actually had an article up in late January. I think it was January 22nd.
Wow.
And so for us, like my team's, among our responsibilities, right? Some of the big ones, it's marketing, it's social, it's search engine positioning, right? And one of the things that just was really great is that article became a foundation for us. And when people Googled what is coronavirus in February and March, we were already there, number one, and we've largely held that kind of position on really basic searches. And, and it's allowed, and then we've never had focus from so many people like we've had. So the team really produced a lot of great content. And we always had this strong foundation and high search engine performance. And so about 70% of our traffic came off of search engines throughout the experience.
So I assume that you also worked insane hours and just were trying to stand up a million different things. Mm-hmm. Was the perceived out ahead of the curve and the perceived, wow, we're doing a really fantastic job because we're getting all of this attention, did that help motivate your team? Or were there ever like moments of darkness where you were like, And what did you say to them when you needed to say that?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that was exciting, I got more insight into our department as a whole. I mean, our marketing communications department is huge, and I'm just one division in that. So to see what are our media people dealing with, what's editorial really doing, what are the inputs, where are they getting their data and decision making, and to be interacting with people at all levels of the department every day. You know, we actually had, for the first month or so, we had 2 daily huddle calls. I think it was 7:30 in the morning and like 5 at night, something like that, 7 days a week. Um, and so that experience was really amazing, right? What's hard? We always want to do more, right? And so we all knew how well we were doing, but at the same time, we weren't taking the time to necessarily understand that. Like, I didn't know how well we were doing in search at the beginning. I'm seeing the drivers, our usual tool sets for analyzing why certain pages were performing like they were. We couldn't look to those tools yet, so it took some time to really get an understanding of how well we were really doing and to share that. And so I think, as it went along, kind of May, June, I think there was a lot more collegiality and just shared experience within the department. And we started to understand what kinds of impacts everybody had. And the web was a big part of that recognition. And then we've had some big awards too already. And, those are the kinds of things that, especially you look at the pandemic, our leadership has a lot of things on their mind. They're aware we're doing really well in terms of traffic and the messaging. They're proud of that messaging, but they really note when you get recognition in the industry, right? That drives it home. It's a different thing, so that's been good to experience.
Yeah. So you're touching on something that a lot of my guests have talked about, which is that for the first time, they really feel like we're almost at this place where we really can get to an integrated marketing approach. Mm-hmm. And, you and I have talked about that, how I believe in 20 years from now, marketing will just be called customer experience.
Right.
So do you think that integration is going to stay, or do you think that when this all becomes whatever it becomes, that silos will come back up again?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think, I can only look at our kind of window of experience, right? Yeah. We're in a very foundational time, in that we're rebuilding our CRM, we're rebuilding our PRM, we had been rebuilding our web platform. That's actually on hold, but we plan to go back to it, And so I'm in those calls that really are about, what data do we have to drive that experience? What personas do we need to develop? Why are we doing this? What are the business objectives? Like really foundational calls that are shaping how we build technology again. So that's really exciting.
Do you think that when you go into these executive meetings and when Suzanne Sawyer, your CMO, goes in and she says, listen, I need more money to do X. Mm-hmm. During the pandemic, you wanted to do X, but we didn't have the staff we needed, or we didn't have, the team that we needed, or we didn't have a role that we needed. Do you think that there's going to be an opening of the pocketbook, so to speak?
Right. I think, yes. And there has been. I mean, so we had, there's some COVID money, things that we absolutely had to do, right? And that we managed. Then we're getting back to her roadmap. How does she see us building foundationally each year? I know some roles that we've added to the department, to my team, related to CRM, PRM, that are really data analyst role that has been vacant for a long time, and that we've now strengthened. It's a better position. So, she clearly has that support. How much did the pandemic play into that and strengthen it? I'm not sure. But we're making a lot of really good foundational moves right now.
So you and I both live in Maryland, and obviously, Governor Hogan was very nervous, but I think, politically, we can say it seems like he did a good job. We never got a surge. We were careful. But you are in Baltimore, which Hopkins has an interesting relationship with its minority populations.
Yes.
Black Lives Matter happens.
Yes.
And you're exhausted and you're just done.
Yes.
What was the first reaction? Like, what did you do?
I mean, that was a very difficult period. I mean, I think that was the hardest period on everybody.
From a work perspective or a personal perspective?
Work and personal. Like a lot of organizations, we were better prepared for a public response. And part of that, I think the biggest part of that was that our team, again, across the department and outside the department, people were working together in such an intimate way on a daily basis that now this hits. And we were getting really honest feedback from our minority staff members about some of the messages that we were writing and how they needed to be strengthened. And, we came out with much more balanced messaging, I think, from our leadership as a result of that. Our CEO visible and saying Black Lives Matter, having our physicians, say, this could be me, George Floyd, it could be me.
My name is Dr. Jason Vaught, and what happened to George Floyd could have happened to me.
My name is Dr. Tanisha Wilson. What happened to Sandra Bland could have happened to me.
My name is Dr. Lawrence Brown. What happened to Eric Garner could have happened to me.
We made some really moving content that, and made it quickly. And I think it was just highly effective. What was most difficult, was just the staff. I think hearing the minorities in our office talk about what they go through in the real world, right? But in our real world and how they feel sometimes day to day, that's a process that honestly we're just still going through.
Yeah.
I'm on a committee that's about well-being in our department that we formed as a result of this. There's 2 other committees, and you can just see the pain and the stress so many people are under. And of course, that's another overwhelming cultural problem that we're doing what we can within the organization, but it's just so big.
So let's talk about that from a business perspective, because of where you are, Hopkins sort of hovers on this health disparities type of issue. Have those things come into play now in terms of business objectives? Has it affected any other things that you're doing? Do you think that it's like the forefront of what people are thinking about, or are people now back to focusing on Corona and getting patients through the hospital and making sure people know that it's COVID clean?
Yeah, I mean, it's all of that. The COVID has gone through phases. I mean, we're still trying to provide information, of course, but our primary focus is on ramp up, supporting the business objectives, helping people understand what they'll encounter when they come here, and making that information as useful and welcoming as possible. When it comes to intersections with the community and public health, we always have ongoing efforts with that as well. They're definitely heightened. There's ways that it immediately impacted my team in terms of creating content, of course. But I think there's a bit of a longer tail there too, because there is, a much more raw, honest conversation that's happening right now than maybe could have 6 months ago.
Yeah. In all the things that you're talking about and this sort of change, that you want to be warm and welcoming, do you think that you've gotten less pushback on that issue when executives are reviewing your materials, or are they just letting them go because there's no time for that?
Definitely not letting it go. I mean, especially all coronavirus is still reviewed by a very small group of physicians. We called them the big 3 for the first few months, and it was 3 faculty members who, number one, this was far from their only responsibility. Like, they were the top in our command center, right? And they were reviewing our content at the beginning, not quite every day, of course, because that was too overwhelming, but we got in a cycle where we could hand them content as a department right? Not just web content, but what does our media team need right now? We try and put it together, and they have been miracle workers in responding. Like officially in Hopkins, we call it physical distancing, not social distancing, right? We're like, look, search engines, people are putting in social distancing. So there's those kinds of compromises that we make and explain, and we put both, right? You know, we have a strategy for which term do we put here, right? Those basics of SEO. But you know, those are the ways that we handle it.
Okay, so what did you learn?
What did I learn? You know, my role, I think, you know, 6 months ago, I was very much speaking with executives, leaders about the enterprise and how we needed to evolve and those kinds of things. My job now is much more focused with the director team. And again, it's how do we need to evolve given where we are, you know, and how can we really kind of simplify? How can we make sure big kind of technology decisions we're making, the resource decisions we're making, how are we aligning those with the business objectives of the institution, which are getting more clarity than ever as well. And then with these big issues that are coming up. And you know what I'd say, I've learned that to be adaptive, less is more, you know, more than ever. It's like, let's just gotta focus. There's enterprise challenges to the web, and a good full comprehensive strategy, you know, people, process, right, technology, all those things. But we as a team really need to focus on paring that down and saying these are the 2-3 things that really matter right now, and that we're going to build, we're going to do well, we're going to get lots of involvement. And
awesome.
Yeah.
So we're having cocktails at our regular dinner, and I can't wait. And not outside, right? And we're eating the chocolate cake that I let you get because I always want the carrot cake, and we always share.
Right.
And you turn to me and you say, you know, Ahava, the one thing that I took with me from that hideous time was,
I've realized how much I need to try and simplify my approach, my message, my everything, you know, and that's a daily exercise, right? And I'm working, I would say I'm working harder than ever at that, and I anticipate that I will continue to. And, you know, more than that, I'm trying to model it for my leaders. I mean, my direct reports, they are change agents in the institution.
Yeah.
Right?
Front lines, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they are. And so I'm trying to be more of a model for them and help them and be adaptive to their individual needs to do that. So.
It was really wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you.
Where can people find you?
My LinkedIn is probably the best place. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not a big tweeter anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, Twitter's become a dumpster fire, so maybe after the election you can go back.
I don't think it's hard.
I know, it really is. It really is. Instagram's the only safe place at this point.
I'm on Instagram, I know, but I keep it pretty personal.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to open this up too far.
A lot of motorcycles, guitars, and camping.
Right. Good time.
Thank you for being here, Aaron.
Oh, thank you so much.